The stack of bills on my kitchen counter hadn't been touched in 3 days when my daughter finally called to tell me how to live the rest of my life. She had no idea I'd already signed the papers on a lavender farm in Provence the week before her father's funeral. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Stay with me until the end of this story, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I'd love to know. I was standing at the sink rinsing out my second cup of coffee when the phone rang. Through the window I could see the old oak tree in the backyard. The one my late husband Gerald had threatened to cut down every fall for 31 years because of the leaves. And never did. The morning light filtered through its bare November branches, casting long shadows across the lawn that Gerald would never rake again. Mother. My daughter's voice cut through the quiet. She always called me Mother when she wanted something. Mom when she was angry. Mommy when she was 14 and needed $20. We need to have a serious conversation. I dried my hands slowly on the dish towel. 68 years old, and my hands still surprised me in mirrors and reflections. The wedding ring was gone, tucked into Gerald's jewelry box next to his cufflinks, but the pale band of skin where it had lived for over 3 decades still felt tender. Good morning to you too, Amanda. Don't be like that. I've been trying to reach you all week. Michael and I have been talking, and we think it's time we sat down and made some decisions about your future, my future. As if I were a construction project awaiting permits. Is that so? Mother, the house is too much. We all know it. 4 bedrooms, that huge yard, all those stairs, Daddy's medical bills alone. I don't even want to think about what you're dealing with financially right now. I let the silence stretch. Outside, a cardinal landed on the bird feeder Gerald had built from a kit our grandson gave him for Father's Day. Amanda used to laugh at that feeder. Said it looked like a kindergarten craft project. Gerald had loved it anyway. My finances are fine, Amanda. Michael and I have been talking to a realtor. Jessica, you remember her. She handled the Patterson place last spring. She thinks we could list at $425 easily, maybe more, depending on the market. That would give you enough to live very comfortably in that senior community off Route 12. The one with the nice walking paths. I walked to the kitchen table and sat down in the chair Gerald had occupied every morning for breakfast. The vinyl cushion was still slightly flattened in the shape of him, as if the house itself refused to forget. You've spoken to a realtor about my house, about options. I've spoken to her about options. And Michael thinks, well, we both think that with whatever's left over after you're settled, it would make sense to help us out a little. You know, Ryan's tuition at Cornell is killing us, and Michael's business hasn't fully recovered from the pandemic. You always said you wanted to help the grandchildren. This would be helping. Helping. The word hung in the air like the smell of something burning. Your father has been gone for 5 weeks, Amanda. I know, Mother, and I'm sorry for the timing, but these decisions don't wait. The market could shift. Interest rates are climbing. Jessica said, if we wait until spring, we could lose 15. Maybe 20,000. I thought about the folder in the locked drawer of Gerald's study. The one I'd found while looking for his Veterans Affairs paperwork. The one with the deed to 32 acres of lavender fields in the Luberon Valley, 2 hours outside Marseille, a stone farmhouse with blue shutters that I had flown to see alone last April, while Gerald was still in the hospital. I'd told him I was visiting my cousin in Boston. He'd smiled at me from his bed and said, have fun, sweetheart, and I had kissed his forehead, tasting the papery dryness of his skin, and I had gone to France and bought a farm. Not Gerald, me. With the inheritance from my mother that I had quietly invested for 26 years, and the money from my own pension as a nurse practitioner at Mercy General, and the small trust my Aunt Constance had left me, that nobody in this family knew existed because I had never told them. I'll think about it, I said. Mother, there's nothing to think about. This is the logical next step, and honestly, it would be good for you. You shouldn't be rattling around that big house alone. It's not healthy. Michael's mother went into the community at Willow Creek after his father died, and she thrived. Thrived, Mother. I said I'll think about it. Don't take too long. Jessica's available Tuesday to do the walkthrough. Goodbye, Amanda. I set the phone down on the table and looked at the cardinal. He was still there, cracking sunflower seeds in his small red beak. Gerald used to narrate what he imagined the birds were saying to each other, silly voices, different personalities. It had driven Amanda crazy when she was a teenager, Daddy, nobody talks to birds. But the grandchildren had loved it, before they got old enough to be embarrassed by us. I stood up. I walked to Gerald's study. I unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk and took out the folder marked Provence in my own handwriting. The deed. The wire transfer records. The photographs I had taken of the farmhouse in April. One with me standing in the doorway in my traveling clothes, taken by the Dutch woman who owned the property and had sold it to me for less than her asking price because, she said in her careful English, she liked my face. You have the face of someone who will love this place properly. Under the deed was a letter I had written to myself 6 months ago, the day I signed the purchase papers via courier from the hospital's family lounge. I unfolded it with fingers that barely trembled. To whoever I am after Gerald is gone, you bought this farm with your own money because you knew. You knew that when he died, they would come for you. Not all of them, but Amanda would, and maybe Michael too. And they would dress it up in concern and logic and family, and they would try to put you somewhere small. Somewhere they could visit twice a year on their terms. You refused to let that happen. You remembered who you were before you were someone's wife and someone's mother. You remembered the girl who wanted to see the world before life got in the way. You bought a farm in the country where your grandmother, Rosalind, was born, in the valley she used to describe to you when you were 7 years old and sick with scarlet fever, and she sat by your bed and told you about the purple fields that smelled like heaven. Go to the farm. Do not apologize. Do not explain. You owe these children your love. You do not owe them your erasure. With all the steel you've been building for 67 years yourself, I folded the letter and put it back in the folder. My hands were perfectly steady. I went into the kitchen and made a list. By noon, I had called my attorney, a woman named Delphine Arsenault, whom Gerald had chosen 12 years earlier precisely because, he said, she doesn't take any nonsense, and I don't want you dealing with nonsense when I'm gone. She confirmed what I already knew. Everything was in my name. The house, the brokerage accounts, the farm in France. Gerald had signed everything over to me in a joint revocable trust when he was first diagnosed, and the life insurance had paid out cleanly 2 weeks ago. Your children have no legal claim to any of it, Delphine said. I know you know that, but I want to say it out loud. Amanda has a realtor scheduled for a walkthrough Tuesday. There was a pause on the line. Then Delphine laughed. It was not a kind laugh. She does not. She has the audacity to imagine one. There's a significant difference. How do I stop her? You tell her no, and if she comes onto your property anyway with that realtor, you call the police. I'll draft a letter this afternoon formalizing your position. Would you like me to send copies to both of your children? Yes, I said, please. After I hung up, I called Delta Airlines. The agent was a young man named Terrence who spoke with a soft Louisiana accent and who called me ma'am in a way that didn't feel condescending. One way to Marseille, ma'am? One way. Next Wednesday, if possible. Yes, ma'am. We've got a few options. Are you traveling for business or pleasure? I thought about the question. I'm moving. Well, congratulations, ma'am. That's a big step at any age. Let me find you the best seat on the plane. I spent the rest of that day and the 3 that followed in a state I can only describe as serene fury. I moved through the house making decisions. This would go to the grandchildren. This would be donated. This would be shipped. This would be sold. Gerald's clothes I packed carefully into boxes for the veterans' thrift store, except for his favorite flannel shirt, the blue and gray one, which I folded into my suitcase. His books I left on the shelves. The house would stand. I had decided that already. I would not sell it under pressure. I would rent it through a management company to a family who needed it, and I would come back someday, perhaps, when I was ready to face what it contained. But I would not hand it over to Amanda's realtor, so that my own daughter could extract the price of her son's tuition from the foundation of my marriage. My son Michael called on Sunday evening. Michael had always been the softer of the two, the one who used to cry during sad movies and hide it. Somewhere along the way, he had married a woman named Teresa who did not believe in softness, and he had gradually hardened to match her. But there were still moments when the old Michael surfaced, usually in phone calls after 10 at night, when Teresa was asleep. Mom. He sounded tired. Amanda told me she talked to you. She did. Are you mad at her? I'm not mad, Michael. I'm clear. That's worse than mad, honestly. Look, I know Amanda came in hot. She does that. But she's not wrong about everything. The house is a lot, and we worry about you. Do you? What does that mean? Michael, when was the last time you drove the 4 hours out here to visit your father while he was dying? The silence on the other end was so complete I could hear the clock ticking in his kitchen. That's not fair, Mom. Isn't it? I had work. Teresa had the twins' schedules. You know how it is. I do know how it is. That's exactly my point. You have full lives. Busy lives. I respect that. I would never ask you to rearrange them for me. So I find it fascinating that you and your sister have suddenly found the time to rearrange mine. Mom, I'm leaving next Wednesday, Michael. Leaving? Leaving where? France. I bought a farm there 6 months ago. Your father didn't know. Nobody knew. I paid for it with my own savings, my inheritance from your grandmother, my pension. It's in a village called Roussillon, in the south. I'm going to live there. He did not speak for a long time. When he did, his voice was different, smaller. The old Michael. You bought a farm, a lavender farm, 32 acres, a stone house from 1847. The woman who sold it to me says the kitchen gets the morning light. Mom, why didn't you tell us? Because I knew what would happen if I did. Your sister would have made it about her. You would have tried to talk me out of it gently, which is your way of making things about you. Your father would have wanted to come with me, and he wasn't well enough. And it would have broken my heart to see him try. So I kept it for myself. It was the first thing I've kept just for myself since I was 23 years old. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, sweetheart. I'm telling you because you're my son and I love you. And I want you to hear it from me, not from Amanda after she's had her version of it. Will you come back? For holidays? For the twins' birthdays? I don't know. Maybe. When I'm ready. And only if the visits are about seeing each other. Not about convincing me to be someone smaller than I am. He was quiet again. Then he said very softly, I think I understand. Thank you, Michael. I'm sorry about Dad. I know you are. I'm sorry I didn't come more. I know that too. After we hung up, I stood at the kitchen window for a long time. The cardinal was gone. The oak tree stood in its bare November honesty, neither mourning nor rejoicing, simply being what it was. Amanda came to the house unannounced on Monday evening with her realtor, Jessica, a thin woman in a cream-colored blazer who was clutching a clipboard and looking as though she desperately wanted to be somewhere else. I opened the door wearing my good blue sweater and a lipstick I hadn't worn since Gerald's last wedding anniversary. Hello, Amanda. Jessica, I presume? Jessica opened her mouth. Amanda spoke over her. Mother, we talked about this. I told you Tuesday, but I moved it up because Jessica's schedule. Amanda. Step inside for a moment. Jessica, you will need to wait in the car. Something in my voice stopped them both. Amanda blinked. Jessica looked at me, looked at Amanda, looked at her car, and made what I am certain was the right decision of her professional life. She retreated down the front steps with a small, apologetic wave. Amanda came into the foyer. I closed the door. Mother, what is going on? Come into the living room, sweetheart. I need you to sit down. She sat on the edge of the couch Gerald and I had bought in 1993, when we refurnished after Michael went to college. I remained standing. It was a decision I had made earlier. Sitting puts you at a disadvantage when someone is trying to manage you. Amanda, the house is not for sale. It will never be for sale while I'm alive. On Wednesday, I am flying to France, where I own a property that I purchased with my own money several months ago. I intend to live there. The house here will be rented to a family through a management company. You and Michael are not, and have never been, beneficiaries of any real estate in this family. That was a decision your father and I made together many years ago, for reasons that I hope will become clear to you in time. Her face did something I had never seen it do before. It seemed to slide, like wet paint. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I love you, and I will not be your solution. Your husband's business is not my responsibility. Ryan's tuition is not my responsibility. Your financial choices are not my responsibility. You're my mother. Yes, I am your mother. I am not your bank. I am not your insurance policy. I am not your retirement plan. I can't believe you're doing this. Daddy just died. Daddy just died, I repeated. And you called me on a Tuesday morning to tell me to sell his house to pay for your son's college. That is not what I—" She stopped. Her mouth trembled. For a moment, I thought I saw the little girl she had been at 7 years old, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. But then her jaw set, and the woman I had raised, the woman I had failed to raise better, re-emerged. "You're being cruel." "I'm being honest, Amanda. There's a difference. I know you've forgotten what it is, but there's a difference. This is because of Michael, isn't it? He called you. He turned you against me. Michael called me last night, and he cried a little, and he said he was sorry, which is more than you have managed in 5 weeks. I'm not going to apologize for wanting what's best for you. Then we have nothing further to discuss." She stared at me. I watched her calculate. I watched her try on 3 or 4 different expressions, testing to see which one might still work on me. Tears, anger, wounded daughter, reasonable adult. None of them fit anymore. The mother who would have softened at any of them had gone somewhere else. The woman who remained was a stranger to Amanda, and Amanda realized it, finally, and her face closed like a door. "Fine," she said. "Go to France. Have your midlife crisis 30 years late. I hope it's everything you dreamed of." "Thank you, Amanda. I hope so too." She stood. She walked to the front door. She opened it. She paused, her back to me, and I thought for one long, aching second that she might turn around and say something true. But she did not. She stepped out into the November evening and pulled the door closed behind her, and I heard Jessica's car door open and shut, and then the engine, and then the silence of the house that had raised my children and was now mine again, just mine. I sat down on the couch where Amanda had been sitting. I did not cry. I felt, strangely, like I had just set down a suitcase I had been carrying for 42 years. My granddaughter Hannah called me the next morning. Hannah was Michael's older child from his first marriage, 24 years old, a nurse in Portland, the only one of my grandchildren who had called me every Sunday of her adult life without fail. "Grandma," Dad told me. "Hello, sweet girl. A lavender farm. In France." "Grandma." "Yes. Can I come visit?" "Oh, Hannah, I have 3 weeks of accrued leave. I haven't taken a vacation in 2 years. Can I come for Christmas?" I could not speak for a moment. "Grandma, are you there?" "I'm here." "Yes. Yes, please come for Christmas. Come as soon as you can. I love you, Grandma. I want you to know that I think what you're doing is the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do." "It isn't brave, sweetheart. It's just late." "Then it's late and brave. Both things can be true." I flew out of Dulles on a Wednesday morning in mid-November. The plane lifted through the gray clouds of the Atlantic seaboard and broke through into sunlight, and I put my forehead against the window and watched my country fall away beneath me. And I thought about Gerald, and I thought about the girl I had been at 23 who had wanted to see Provence and had married a good man instead. And I thought about how those two things had not, in the end, been in opposition, but simply in sequence. Marseille smelled of sea salt and diesel, and something green I could not name. The woman who met me at the airport was named Sylvie. She was the daughter of the Dutch woman who had sold me the farm, a tall woman in her 50s with sun-browned forearms and a smile that took its time. She drove me north in a rattling Peugeot, and the land changed around us, flattening into vineyards, then rising into hills of ochre stone and umbrella pines, and finally into the long, soft valleys where the lavender grew in rows that would, in July, turn the whole world purple. The farmhouse was exactly as I remembered. Blue shutters, stone walls thick as a man's forearm, a kitchen with a deep sink and a copper pot rack and a window that faced east. Sylvie had stocked the pantry. There was bread on the counter and a bottle of wine on the table and a note in her mother's handwriting that said, "Welcome home, mon ami." I slept for 14 hours. The days that followed shaped themselves around small things. Walking into the village for bread, learning the names of my neighbors. An older couple named Pascal and Marie Claire who ran the cheese shop. A young woman named Lou who kept goats on the hill behind my farm. A retired school teacher named Henri who spoke excellent English and volunteered immediately to help me with my terrible French. I wrote letters, actual letters, on paper, which I mailed from the village post office. One every week to Michael, one every week to Hannah, one every 2 weeks to Amanda, which she did not answer, but which I kept writing anyway. because they were not for her answer. They were for the record. I wanted there to be a record, in my own handwriting, of a mother who had not given up. In December, Hannah arrived. She stepped off the train in Avignon in a parka, too heavy for Provence weather, and burst into tears when she saw me, and we held each other on the platform while French commuters walked politely around us. She stayed for 3 weeks. She learned to make the goat cheese pastries that Marie Claire taught us both. She walked the lavender rows in the winter mist and said they smelled like memory, even dormant. She met Henry and his wife Celine and their grown son Julian, who was a veterinarian, and who looked at Hannah the way a man looks at a woman he intends to think about for a long time after she is gone. On Christmas Eve, Hannah and I made a fire and opened a bottle of the wine from my neighbor Lou's family vineyard, and Hannah looked at me over the rim of her glass and said, "Grandma, can I tell you something?" "Anything, sweetheart. Dad's going to be okay. It might take him a while, but he'll figure it out. He loves you." "I know. Aunt Amanda." "I don't know about Aunt Amanda." "I don't either. Is that okay with you?" I thought about it. The fire popped. Outside, a winter rain was falling on the lavender, a sound like the whole earth breathing. "It has to be okay with me," I said. "Because the alternative is letting her rearrange my life to avoid the discomfort of her own. And I've done that. I did that for 42 years. I'm not doing it anymore." "Grandma." "Yes, sweetheart. I'm proud of you." I covered her hand with mine. Her hand was young and warm and had a small white scar across the knuckle from something she had done as a child that I could not remember. I had spent so much of my life memorizing my children's and grandchildren's small wounds, and I had forgotten to keep any for myself. I thought, there is still time for that. I am not done. I am 68 years old, and I am not done. In February, Amanda sent an email. It was short. It said, "Mother, I don't know what to say. I've been angry. I am still angry. But Hannah showed me pictures and it looks like you are happy there. I hope you are. I don't know when I will be ready to talk. I wanted you to know I received your letters. I read it 3 times. I wrote back, Amanda, thank you. Take whatever time you need. The letters will keep coming. Love, Mom." She did not respond, but in April she sent a photograph of my grandson Ryan, her son, the one whose tuition had started all of this. He was standing in front of his dorm at Cornell holding a sign that said, "Grandma, Mom told me about your farm. Send lavender, love, Rye." I laughed out loud when I saw it. It was the first time I had laughed at anything Amanda had sent me in 6 months. I had a small bundle of last year's lavender wrapped in brown paper and shipped to Ithaca the next morning. July came. The fields turned purple. Hannah returned for a visit with Julian, who had, as I had suspected, not stopped thinking about her. Michael flew over for 10 days with his younger children and without Teresa, who had stayed home for reasons he did not explain and which I did not ask about. He stood in the lavender rows at sunset and wept. And I held his shoulder, and he said, "Mom, I understand now. I'm sorry it took me this long to understand. It took you exactly as long as it needed to take, sweetheart. Dad would have loved this place. Dad does love this place. He sees it. I'm sure of it." On the last evening of Michael's visit, my phone rang. It was Amanda. I stepped out onto the stone terrace to answer. The lavender was at its fullest, the air so thick with scent I could taste it. The sun was setting over the Luberon, turning the hills the color of apricots and old bronze. "Mom, hello, sweetheart." She was crying. I could hear it in the shape of her breath. "Mom, I don't know how to do this." "Then just talk." "We don't have to do anything. Just talk. I've been seeing a therapist." Michael made me go. And I've been thinking about things. About what you said that night. About being your solution. I've been thinking about it for 8 months, Mom. I'm glad you're thinking. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes. The scent of lavender, the warm stone under my bare feet, my daughter's voice across 4,000 miles. Thank you, Amanda. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I wanted to say it. I hear you. Can I come visit sometime? Not to fix anything, just to see you. When you're ready. Okay. Amanda. Yes, Mom. I love you. That never stopped. It was never the question. I know, Mom. I think I knew. Even when I was being horrible. I just didn't believe I deserved it. if I couldn't earn it with something. That's the thing about love, sweetheart. The real kind. You don't earn it. You just receive it. And if you're lucky, eventually, you learn how. She cried harder. I let her. After a while, she said goodnight. And I said goodnight. And I stood on the terrace as the stars came out over the valley where my grandmother had been born. And I thought about the woman who had stood at her kitchen window 8 months ago watching a cardinal on a feeder her husband had built. And I thought about how that woman had not known quite what she was about to do. But she had done it. She had done it anyway. If you've been through something like this, or you're in the middle of something like this right now, I want you to hear me. You are not a burden. You are not a bank. You are not the punishment the people you love inflict on themselves for their own choices. You are a woman, a whole woman, with a lifetime of her own still waiting. It is not too late. It is never too late. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and what you would do if you had a lavender farm waiting for you somewhere. And if this story found you at the right moment, please share it with someone who needs it. There are 2 more stories I want to tell you. I'll see you there.